Is it on? Yes, it is on. Well, hello everyone. Okay, I'm Luke, but as Superman has also got his alias, Clark Kent, I go by another name, and that is the Geek of Steel. I'm here today on the Real GM stage to introduce two very special people who I've been a huge fan of for many years, as all of you have as well, and this is why this tent is just packed out today. It brings me so much joy to see so many Superman fans and families here. Last year was my first visit to Metropolis, and as soon as I got home, I booked my second trip back because I just knew I couldn't miss another year. But yes, we're all very excited. So first up is a girl who was just super. She played the character Kara Zor-El, better known as Supergirl in the 1984 movie. We have also seen her play Lara L in Smallville, and has returned to a familiar subject by playing the role of Supergirl's adoptive mother more recently. So let's please give a huge welcome to Helen Slater. Now, next up is someone who has not only played Allura Zor-El in the hit show Supergirl, but has also starred in over 150 episodes of Smallville, a show that I grew up with and fell in love with. And yes, let's welcome onto the stage as the ace reporter Lois Lane, Erica Durance. Ladies, it's an honour to meet you both. I'm going to ask a few questions and then we'll open it up to all these amazing fans who have come to see you today. But first of all, I asked my followers on social media for advice, because when I found out I was going to be doing this gig today, I was nervous beyond belief just to be standing so close to you both. And they gave me lots of advice. But one of the most popular questions was, as this is the Superman celebration, who has been your favourite Superman over the years?
Should I answer that? Well, that's the answer I guess I should give, right? Yeah, of course, Tom.
Well done. Yeah!
We are, of course, into each other's company for many, many, many long hours, and we had a lot of laughs. That guy has a really good sense of humor, super quiet, but funniest guy on the planet.
And Helen?
Probably Chris Reeve, because that's who I grew up with. And
it's a question I get asked a lot, sort of, who's your favourite Superman? And there's been so many, it is hard to choose, but I'm just thankful that more people are playing our favourite hero, because as long as that is happening, our stories and our love for Superman can grow, which is great. Helen, what was it like for your first day on set as Supergirl?
Goodness, my first day on Supergirl. What I actually remember more so was the first day of training for the part. Like, that really is sort of burned in my brain. I was a brunette when I got the part. I was 18 years old. I was in New York City. And when I flew to England to start work on it, I was training with Alf Joint, who had trained Chris. And I just remember this feeling of, like, every day, 10 hours a day, doing trampolining and swimming and wire work and all kinds of things to get me in shape for the Supergirl movie. Fencing and, yeah.
Lots of work.
I actually don't remember the very first day of shooting. It's a really good question.
Sorry.
I'll see if it burbles up from the bottom. But mostly it was just the beginning of getting that part, and doing that part was such a seismic shift from my life in New York City as a actress wanting to book, any kind of commercial or television job, so it was just such a shock to have that be the first.
Well, you did it very well. Erica, I keep stopping myself from calling you Lois, so if it does happen, I apologise. Obviously, many episodes of Smallville, many years. Some of the guys on set have been known for their pranks. Were there any sort of pranks set on you over the years whilst filming Smallville? Or can you remember any of your favourite ones?
Oh, well, some I can never ever talk about it. We signed in blood about that one. I think that I was best known for somebody that they could get laughing regardless of what was happening. So, I can't really think of like a specific. Oh, Michael was always being Michael. Yes. So even looking at the guy, you'd start laughing, right? Because you're expecting he's going to do something silly or whatever. But a lot of I don't know how to explain this, but a lot of the pranks or things that ended up happening as outtakes were having to do with my own bizarre sense of of humor, and I'd be in the middle of a scene and going to do it, and I couldn't remember my line right, and I kind of have this defense mechanism when I don't remember something. I hit things, so I hit Tom a lot. Yes. Off camera. I don't know it, and so he'd be like, "So thank God he was really big," but. But I brought him a lot of joy in that way because it was very easy to poke fun at me and get me laughing. And
it was, well, your on-screen chemistry over the years, your sort of, that fiery attitude that soon softened when we became more than friends and became partners on the show. It was a joy to watch that blossom from the early stage and for you to start, as you always did call him Smallville. That was a nice touch. So it was always nice to see that blow.
That was a thing that I made.
Really? Right.
I made a mistake. And it was one of my first times there, and I was always really quite nervous. And I was doing some dialogue with him or whatever. I was supposed to be saying Clark, and then I was thinking, I'm on Smallville right now. I'm on that show, and it just kind of went blah.
Wow!
And so,
but it worked.
But it worked.
That's it. Hey, well done. There we go. Now, yes, Supergirl and Lois Lane are iconic characters. Was there a way that you made the roles your own, or did you find inspiration from, say, other celebrities or people from your personal life? So if we go for Helen first for that one?
That's a good question, making it my own. I mean, the big thing was learning to do this aerial ballet back in 1983, which we were up in Scotland shooting it, but we had practiced a lot at Pinewood Studios. They set up a space with wires and mattresses to kind of do this somersault and swan dives and so that was, I guess that was sort of their take on it, or my take on it. It was unusual too.
And Erica, obviously, the wonderful Margot Kidder appeared on Smallville, as did Terry Hatcher. Did you ever speak with those two lovely ladies over the years about you playing Lois Lane? Or?
I've never spoken with Terry, but I spoke with Margot. And I've said this a couple of times because we just had our one major interaction, and I was at a convention. I just started the part, and what ends up happening is you end up getting this job, and all of a sudden it's shooting and it's going, and it's this very strange, surreal thing that happens in your mind because you're working and putting your stuff out there, and it's going faster than you want it to go. And you're like, oh, I guess I'm just doing that. That's done. That's going to be out there, and people are going to look at that, and okay. And so you're kind of feeling, maybe, at least I was, a little bit nervous about how everything was going. And so I was in Toronto, and I talked to somebody about the show, and I turned and left, and I was waiting for the next person, and somebody grabbed me from behind, which was a little startling, and whispered in my ear, she said, "You hit it out of the ballpark, kid." And I turned around, and it was Margot Kidder.
Wow.
And it was one of the best moments of my life.
Wow.
And then she said another thing in my ear. She goes, "You never let them see you cry, honey." And I was like, "Geez, Louise, lady." Anyway, she's my hero, and she's the woman that I would hope to have say that she appreciated how it had been done, And so I used her a lot for inspiration. And then I think what ends up happening too when you get a part, and it's a long part, is they give you the parameters, the creative team, they write it, they say, we want this in it, and then they start to watch what you do. Then they write to you. So it ends up being this really strange amalgamation of parts of you, parts of your interpretation of their notes, and things that they find that work. And then so by the end of the show, they're writing a lot to your sense of humor or your way of delivering something or something they've seen, like we're saying with Tom and I in our chemistry or something, they've seen the way we work together and the way we made each other laugh, and so then they would write more to that, So it ends up being a hybrid of all sorts of creative minds, I think.
Thank you. That's a lovely story about it. Margot, thank you. Right, I've got one more question, and then we'll open it up to all you guys, so get your questions ready. You have both played multiple DC Comics characters, heroes over the years. Is there a role, not necessarily a superhero that you would love to play, but what is your dream role that you would love to act out one day on film?
That's in the superhero?
No, just your dream role.
Excellent question.
Thank you. Sorry.
I want to keep working.
That's the good answer. That's a good answer.
I think that's a brilliant answer, and I second that. I just to keep working, to keep, it's a privilege to be an actor, and it's hard to keep, it is hard to be in the long game as a marathon, and I think we both had the good fortune that we have continued to work, and I hope for that to keep happening.
And we all hope that. We want to see that for many years. We want to see you come back and just keep doing what you do. So thank you so much for answering my questions. But let's get some out from the audience now as well. So get your hands up. We're going to get one down from the VIP section first of all.
You both have acted on Supergirl, and since we're bringing back characters in the older roles, would you play Lois or Supergirl again if they asked you to take up the role on Supergirl again?
Play Supergirl?
Yeah, again.
I'm 55.
You can do it. You can do
That's a lady.
Thank you for the compliment. I would love to be have superpower again. I think that would be awesome. Kind of a wise, prone superpower lady, whatever that might be.
They've already cast Lois Lane for Supergirl. So
That's true.
yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Like I said, I'm a pretty easygoing person when it comes to stuff like that. If it works out in my life, it works out in scheduling. If I can drag Tom Welling back and make him wear the suit.
Yeah!
Get over yourself and put the suit on. When you're 6'5" and 200 and something, enjoy it. Wear the suit.
Hello. My question is pretty much directed at Helen, but maybe I can answer. What was it like working in Pinewood Studios on the 007 lot?
I remember they had Cubby Broccoli, who's the famous producer of the 007 movies. They had big posters as you would drive in. It felt very old school rather. There were lots of movies being made. The Zucker brothers were shooting, and Jim Abrams were making, not Kentucky Fried, Top Secret with Val Kilmer. That was being shot. And I remember Harry Hamlin was in the conservatory making some movie maybe with Ursula Andress. That's where he probably met her back then. Or anyway, and one of the distinguishing factors of Pinewood Studios in England is they would have the tea trolley always at 4:00, whether you were on the set or wherever, and a woman would just come in. It was so civilized and lovely with like the tea trolley, little scones, and that's a distinguishing thing of Pinewood
It
Studios.
is very true. Teas and scones, 24/7.
Oh, well, you know that.
I do know, yes.
It's such a nice ritual.
Thank you very much.
Again, welcome to Metropolis. Welcome back to Metropolis. Hi.
That was like the voice of God.
Oh, you should have never told me that. This is for whoever wants it. You're both celebrities. You have friends who are celebrities. So first, who's the most famous person in your phone right now? And second, will you put them on speakerphone and let us say hi?
In the pantheon of like celebrity people. I feel this is my honest answer to that. If I was more of like extroverted and more kind of like let's wrangle in the troops, but honestly, I feel so shy about the whole celebrity fame thing anyway. I think my friendships with people, I don't know, just try and relate not on that level. But of course, I'm so happy to be here and answer anything. I probably just am disappointing you terribly, but that's the best I can do. I should ask Michelle, you go. That's call me.
I got nothing. Sorry. But you know, if you ever have Rosie here again, I'm sure he has many, many, many friends, because he's got lots and lots of friends. So what's really happening up here is that I'm admitting that I don't have a lot of friends. Or friends that I want to keep. Basically.
No, yes.
Hi there. I've got a question for Helen. Helen, did you ever have the opportunity to meet Christopher Reeve, and what was he like?
I did have the opportunity to meet him. I met him at Pinewood Studios, and then we did become friends. Just one of the kindest, sweetest men. I just did a Comic-Con in Birmingham, and Brandon Routh was there, and I have to say, I think he's been here, is that true?
Last year.
If you got a chance to meet him, it is uncanny how much his affect, just his persona, is like Chris Reeve. So if you want to get a sense of Chris, he really had that. And I have told this story before that it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We were in New York City. Chris and I had had dinner, and we were hanging out on a park bench on Central Park West or Central Park South, and these 3 fire trucks, 2 or 3 fire trucks come zooming by, and Chris turns to me and he says, you know, here's Superman and Supergirl, and there's nothing we can do. But yeah, and just as an example of what he went through with his injury, and then how he just devoted his life to giving back and to being of service, and I think in terms of the definition of what a real superhero is, I think his life was a spectacular example of that, and we should all take a page from his playbook.
I've seen lots of people with the Christopher Reeve Foundation dog tag on this weekend, so that's a nice touch. It's nice to see that legacy is still alive today, so it's fantastic.
When did you decide to become an actress?
It's a very good question.
That's a great question. Do you want to go first?
I always liked acting in school and stuff, so that's where I started doing all the plays and just pretty much anything, any kind of group, community theater and stuff like that. I grew up in a really, really small town. It was a farming town in Canada, in Alberta. And so I didn't think I'd be able to maybe do it as a living, but it was something I understood, and it was a way that I found that I could express myself and feel really, really, really happy. And so then I just kept going for it.
And for me, I was living in New York. I also grew up doing plays in school and summer stock, having really fun opportunities, but the real change happened when my mom wanted to move from Long Island to Manhattan, and we couldn't afford private school, but there was Performing Arts High School, where this very famous movie back in 1978-79, Fame, is from, and then the television series. And my mom saw me in a school play and thought, well, she's kind of good. Maybe she can get into Performing Arts High School. And so once I got into there, that was sort of this vocational high school where we really learned about acting and acting classes a lot, and then I started auditioning similarly when I was done. Found that I loved it and auditioned and got out. Yeah.
It's Supergirl's 60th anniversary this year, and I was wondering why, 60. She looks pretty good for 60, right? And I was wondering why you both thought that Supergirl is a special character that has lasted so long.
You know, I think it's kind of interesting that I think with Melissa Benoist now in the role, they are finding a way to write up Supergirl that is going to be, I think, more for kids, more a role model. So I think it's taken maybe 60 years or 50-something years to have a young woman be a superhero that's got humor and self-effacing and more human, those human qualities. And I don't know what the reason for that is. Maybe it was men writing it back in the day, and it needed to go through these many years to sort of have it be. But it is definitely at this point in time, it is enduring, and Melissa's just incredible. I can't say enough nice things about her as a person, but also with her in that role. She's just bringing so much of it to life.
I think something I wanted to say about this universe, the Superman universe, is it's such a reciprocal thing. We're lucky, very lucky we won the lottery and get to play the characters out, but they don't live unless people love them. And I've always found over the years, different people that I've met have encouraged me more than I feel like I've encouraged them, because perhaps it's a mirror of a mutual desire for hope and looking for the good in everything. And so what I like about this universe as well is that you've got the adult version and then you've got the kids. And of course, any of us who has kids or has kids in our life know that the kids we look to for that version of ourselves that somehow gets stripped away a little bit as we get older and we get sad about what's going on in the world. And so for me, I think it's so incredibly important that this world stays alive, but I think it stays alive because of you guys, because you love it, you push it, you come to all of these things, you teach your kids about it, and it's about being your own hero. And I know that sounds cheesy, but we also live in a world where there's a lot of stuff out there that's a little frustrating. We don't have control over it, but we have control over how we're going to deal with the little things in our life. We're going to teach our kids to deal with things, and that we have the power, that there's good out there, and that we have the power within ourselves and within our loved ones to meet and unify over that, and hopefully, continue to fight the good fight. And I don't know why I'm emotional, but I'm so touched by the love that these characters bring to each other and to all of us, and that we can kind of be that love and hope wave that comes back. Amen.
Hi, my question is for Erica. I've watched Smallville for a long time, and as a fan of the show, it's really easy to think the actress or actor is a lot like their character. So I was just kind of curious, what would you say is different about you versus Lois Lane, and what's similar to your actual personality traits?
Well, that's a good question. I've been asked that before, and I don't know if that answer changes as I get older. But she's a very complicated contradiction. She's a walking contradiction. She's vulnerable, she's scared, she fights against it. She's got the really sad parts of herself. She throws herself into humor. Whatever she's afraid of, she fights and gets back up and does all of those things. I actually based the character, believe it or not, on my mother and the things that she taught me, and that's who my mom is to me. I think I'm a little bit more serious than Lois is, and much more introverted than she is. But I also have that side of myself. Maybe it's because I'm a Gemini that flips into crazy town mode and super in your face and that sort of thing. But I'm actually much more tame. I don't like a lot of conflict. I think that's why I like playing her so much, because I prefer the non-conflict version of everything. And so maybe there's part of me that wants to be more that way. And so getting to play that character for so long was kind of amazing. Get to use my voice. And as I'm getting older, I'm using it anyway. So maybe it was in there anyway.
Hi, this is for Erica. Erica, when you played Lois Lane, you captured all the great qualities. That's what I think made you such a beloved Lois Lane in the history of television and probably in the whole media. Now, my question is, when you first started with Smallville, you started in a couple episodes. Now, was this planned to be a long-term situation for you, or because of your charisma and the way you interacted with the other characters, they expanded your part and it kept on going and going, and eventually you became a full-time regular? Now, was that planned, or was that later evolving as the show went on?
That's a really, thank you for saying that, by the way. I got on it just for 4 episodes. So it was I was supposed to meet Clark for 4 episodes, kind of mess things up for that season, and then leave, and then they continue on. But I'm obsessed with them, so I just stuck around and I was like, "You're gonna love me! Make you guys love me!" No. And then it just kind of it evolved from there, and then they just kept giving me more and more things to do, and And I lucked into getting to work for 7 years in that role. So, yeah.
Hi. So thank you both for not only the initial roles that you played, but to continue and like bring the legacy and keep it going through multiple roles. That I know means a lot to me, and I'm sure that it means a lot to everyone here. My question is for Helen. You were on that episode of Seinfeld, and we all know that Jerry Seinfeld is a huge Superman fan. Was him being a Superman fan part of how you got the role? And when you sneeze, do people tell you that you are so good looking?
Jason Alexander, who played George Costanza, directed that episode, and he called me like 3 days before it started and was like, I don't know, do you want to just come and do this thing? It's just a couple of lines, like the sneezing and the whatever. And I did not know at that time that Jerry was such a huge fan of the Superman superhero world. But yeah, I think I've had maybe 1 or 2 people at a convention say that line like for fun to me, and it's very sweet. So thank you for saying that.
Helen, this is for you. Love you, by the way.
And the other.
Secret of my success. What was it like working with Michael J. Fox? And to this day, my favorite line is still "Good day." That means good luck.
Oh, I don't even remember that.
That's when he walked into your office. That's my favorite line. When he's walking through your office and he said, "This is not the bathroom." He could, they removed the urinals last week.
Oh, okay.
Good day.
Oh, there we go.
Goodbye.
Well, I don't know how many of you would have to remember this, but Michael J. Fox was a huge star on the TV show Family Ties. It was just and if you imagine this is before anyone had a cell phone, before there was any social media. I think it was 1986 or 85, something like that. And we shot in Manhattan, and wherever we went, I don't know how these people knew that he would be there, but it would be just hundreds of young girls lined up outside the trailer. They had to set up, tape to keep people back, and it was such an unusual. He was so beloved and so famous in that role. And my experience with him was he's Canadian, and I do think the Canadians are just as a whole, just this lovely, gentle people, like 2 tablespoons more kind and loving. As a general, I love being American, but Canadians seem to have a softness or a kindness, just a little extra of that, and he had that for sure. Super professional, and I do remember auditioning for it, and I'm 5'8" and a little bit, and he's 5 feet. Maybe 5'4", I think. And I remember auditioning and like coming in for the final and kind of with him there and sort of just talking to him, like, because I didn't want to seem like I'm towering. So I remember that piece. Thanks for asking that. That's nice.
I'm kind of swooning over both of you.
Thank you.
Helen, love you, and Billie Jean.
Thank you.
And Erica, I just flew back from Toronto actually, and we drove from South Florida all the way up here to see both of you. So, my lovely wife and daughter right here too. The question: we've seen so much emerge in this generation. It's fantastic, women empowerment, and we're seeing the Supergirl series now. It looks like there's talks of the movie Supergirl, the movie coming out next year. Just if you're able to, and if you're not, it's totally fine, but have you been tapped on the shoulder for anything?
I haven't for anything.
No, I keep looking. Nobody's tapping us.
I didn't actually know they're going to make a movie, so you're telling me this. I haven't.
We're watching the rumors and everything happening with the recently released both movies, DC and Warner Brothers, looking to release that, so we're really optimistic for it. And we hope to see you both.
Thank you.
I have a question for Helen. We would really like to hear some stories about working with Peter O'Toole.
I've told this before, but it's such a beautiful story. So Peter O'Toole was one of the great English actors, just incredible. We were, when we were shooting, there's so much downtime when you're making a movie. There's just these, unlike television, there's just these, like swatches of time, like the Grand Canyon, where just nothing is happening. And one day, Peter said to me, he knew that I'd gone to Performing Arts High School, and I was a very eager, earnest actress, and he said to me, do some Shakespeare for me, do something Shakespeare. And I said, okay. So I did my Juliet speech. Thou knowest the mask of night is on my face, else would a maiden's blush would paint my cheek for that which thou hast overheard me speak tonight. Fain would I dwell on form, fain deny what I spoke. And my hands were just flailing, eager, New York, flailing, Juliet. And he said, I want you to try it again, and this time I want you to imagine you're holding a daffodil between your thumb and pointer, and keep your hands by your side. And I had this wild experience of the poetry coming through, and that the Shakespeare was more, his poetry was coming through as opposed to my smallness. Not that you're small when you're flailing, but maybe that's not quite the right word, but contemporary was subdued, and out came his poetry, and I felt this lift. And then the other really great acting lesson is when we're walking through the Phantom Zone. When I look at it in the final film, he is acting like it's Lawrence of Arabia going through the sandstorm. And I'm kind of like twiddling along, like, it's a little sandy out here. You know, maybe I should get a cappuccino. Anyway, so I realized from that, and from the clown work that I've done and the improv and theater work over the last 30 years, just how important it is to put scenes in your body. And here was the great Peter O'Toole, just knowing that, and I didn't quite have that yet, or for whatever reason, feel like I missed the mark in that moment. So those are two memories I have of him.
This question is for Helen. I'm interested in your music. So how did you get your start with playing music? How did you begin to, what inspired you to write
Thank
songs?
you so much.
And do you continue to play on a very regular basis?
Yes, I just finished recording my 6th record. It's based on the myth of, thank you. It's based on the myth of the Selkie and the fisherman, which is this gorgeous Irish myth that's been near and dear to my heart forever. And the way that I started composing was at Performing Arts High School. There was a bus and truck program, and I was tapped by the theater teacher there to write an original musical. And so there were 16 of us, including Erica Gimple from Fame, who played Coco. She was in my original class, and Keisha Lewis, who went on to replace Jennifer Holliday in Dreamgirls on Broadway. And we took the myth of the Empress Nightingale, and I wrote the music for that and toured it around New York City, and that just began this love affair with composing. And the last 3 records I made are musical theater type, and then the 3 before that are singer-songwriter. And I think I was tapped to do that because Performing Arts had a cabaret night where you could just get up and perform, and I was performing original music, and the drama teacher saw that and was like, will you write this? And I love composing, and this last piece about the Selkie and the fisherman is really like just so meaningful. Every piece has been meaningful, but this one especially, because it's about following your intuition, and the story is incredible. But thank you for asking about that. Thank you.
My question is for both of you. Do you have any upcoming movies or TV shows that you're going to be starring in?
As an actor, there's always projects in the go. Whether they get greenlit is another thing. I have a couple of films that I'm going to do this summer for Movie of the Weeks, and one of which I'm pretty excited about. I get to direct. So I did a medical show that probably not a lot of you guys saw up in Canada called Saving Hope, and I did that for 5 years. Cool. It was really fun, and I spent a lot of time on there producing, and then I did some directing on there. So that's kind of another avenue in this this world that I want to use to tell stories, and I'm pretty excited to get that going. And yeah, just again, it's hard to name everything that's going on, but there's a couple of series that I'm trying to push, but I'm pushing them now from the developmental stage where I get to be an EP, I get to put myself in as a director, I get to put myself in the writing room. I just want to have more control over what goes on, and that's one of the only ways to do it sometimes. So probably within the next year or so, there will be a couple of cool things, hopefully, coming out.
It's so great you're directing, and we need women directors. I'm doing an improvised movie this summer. It's sort of a part 2 to this film I did up in Sundance called Chantilly Lace a million years ago. And then also I have something in development as well that, fingers crossed, it will have a go. But those are the 2 things that are.
Okay, so I have a question for both of you. What was your favorite day or time of acting? Like, what was your favorite day of acting?
I think my favorite day of acting was when I got to fly for the first time, and they put the wires on me and hoisted me up into the sky. I thought that was like incredible.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's such a good question, and I'm not going to be able to give a great answer because I love so much of it. The reason being is I love to do a little bit of everything. So, my favorite scenes on Smallville were always with Tom because we had lots and lots and lots of laughs, so we got into a lot of trouble. Then I liked the scenes where I got to dress up and beat people up. Not for real, but for things. That's the fun thing about acting is you can work on all that aggression, but nobody gets hurt. Everybody just dusts themselves off. And then one of the things I really liked was when I did my other show, I got to play a doctor. So every week a new doctor would come in, whether it was a heart surgeon or a brain surgeon, and we'd get to do that surgery, and we'd get to work with actual fake cadavers, and you'd get to do the whole bit of medical business. And so I guess that's the thing about acting, which is so great, is you get to play with different parts of yourself that you think you'd want to do, or that you think you like.
Did you have a favorite costume on Smallville?
My favorite costume?
You had one that was very like the Wonder Woman costume.
Yeah, that one was really fun for that day, but it's also because I got to dress up as a stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Which was way more comfortable.
I bet.
And then the black costume, the Catwoman costume, was a poor choice in fabric because it was made out of pleather. So you had pleather pants and then pleather boots that they decided should be like higher than these ones, like really high. So pleather on pleather in the heat gets really sweaty and sticky, and then it sticks together. And it was a onesie. So I couldn't sit down. So they built me like a Hannibal Lecter-esque type of crate, and I got to sit. And when I was done, I'd walk over, and then they would help me on, and then I'd lay there, and I'd wait to do my shot. And as I was sitting there, not eating for a few days, I looked over at Tom Welling, eating a huge sandwich, in his boots, and his jeans, and his really comfortable outfit. And that just paints the picture of my 7 years of Smallville. Dancing backwards in heels, right?
And I wanted to ask you, Erica, what was your favorite episode of Smallville? My favorite episode is the Dukes of Hazzard episode.
The Daisy Dukes.
Gosh. Well, there's 100 and something, so I don't remember all of them. I can remember snippets of things I enjoyed. So, let's see. When I first got there, it was like first or second season, there was the one where we all got to be witches, and that's because I got to hang out with Kristen, and all of us hung out together, which was really, really fun. They provide so many opportunities when you're doing sci-fi to just be many different things, and everything's explainable. And now, I cannot remember for the life of me the name of it, but it was in season 8, and it was when they were moving the Lois and Clark relationship along a little bit more, and gosh, I can't remember it. And they were on some kind of, they were spy mission. And she was wearing this fuchsia button-up coat, and it was just, I think it was just because it was so romantic comedy, and they were bringing their romance up a little bit, which I really, really loved. And so, but I can't remember the name of it. So now I'm just talking at nauseam about some weird outfit I wore once. But if you happen to ever see an episode, you'll know which one it is.
If you could ever go back and tell your younger self something, what would you say? Like advice of some kind?
You're okay.
Wow.
Just the way you are. And it'll be okay. It'll pass. Sometimes the big things you don't feel are going to pass. But they always do. And you always have people that are there that love you. But essentially for me, it's always, I still have to tell myself that now. I'll go even to go to work or whatever, and I'll just be like, you're okay.
Beautiful. I second that. It's okay, you're okay. And I think there were times when I was really young, when I first started working, and it felt very overwhelming or scary at times. And if I could go back and just whisper in that feeling, like, it does pass. No matter the biggest feelings that you have, they don't stay in that place the whole time. It does go up and down. And even now, all these years later, it does still feel the same. Things are up and down. That is kind of the nature of how life is. I don't know, at least that's my view today. So,
and also just, yeah, I'm just like I feel fiercely and passionately defensive, not only of all of us that are adults, but of the young people that live in a world where everything's made that is out there, that's put out there in social media, and the fact that there's no distinction between reality and what's fake. So little snapshots of somebody's life, you know, their day still starts the same as yours. So if you're working all day at the same job that drives you crazy, and then you look on Instagram, somebody's in Paris. Yeah, well, they still start at the same day, the same way the day is, and they still have the same feelings that you feel, and it's just, I think it's just good for everybody to know that that's there, and it's great, and it should be a fun little thing to look at, but that's not somebody's life, right? And especially for our business, we do it as a business. We're marketing ourselves as merchandise for jobs, for producers, for getting that next bit of work, right? But the reality is, it's kind of essentially, it's all the same, and we all have our days where we feel like it's mundane and boring, we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, and we're never going to get this, and we're never going to get that. And I think social media can be super dangerous, and that the kids, they've grown up with it, and that's all they see. So I'm trying to, even though I have an Instagram that I started, and I'm flailing with because I do it myself. Apparently you're supposed to pay people to do that. So mine's really, really amateurish. But to kind of really fight for showing our kids and also showing ourselves that that's not real. It's fun, but it's not real. And I'm a real downer.
My question is, when you're making the movies or the TV shows, and there's a lot of camera angles, and I'm sure there's a lot of cuts while they do scene changes or shooting from different person to different person, how do you manage to keep the emotions consistent to make a complete scene? Because to me that's amazing. That's an actor and actress. And how do you guys do that?
I mean, that is acting technique, I would say. And it's very different in film and television than in theater because of that exact theme, the stop-start nature, you might be good when, you might have the emotion totally filled up when it's on your scene partner's close-up, and then the camera turns around and you're dry. You're not, and that is, I mean, I don't know if you have had this experience, but with all the acting classes, I continue to take class and to study, and I coached on my movies. I sort of always had an acting coach just to help with that, to be prepared. But as I get older, I really feel the single most crucial thing, and not just for acting, but like for everything, is to relax. And that if the body is relaxed, if you can get a message to just rest the shoulders, soften the belly, just no matter what it is, you can probably, it may not be the expectation of weeping if that's the big emotional scene, but at least you'll be relaxing the mind, relaxing the body, and then start go back into the creative game. That's been my sort of feeling about it.
That's good. I'm good. It also depends how you work as an actor. So for me, I have to know technically what's going on in every single shot. So if I have a scene, for example, that is particularly emotional, I'm going to ask my director, what are your shots for this? How are you going to do it? How are you going to shoot it? What's the size?
Because you're
All
a
of those things.
director.
Because that's the way my brain works. But then I can relax because then I can plot the emotional graph of what I need to do for them. Now that's a very technical way of looking at it. But if I don't know that, then I find that I can't get into here. So some people start here, some people start here, and then they go into here. And then you're lucky if you have a scene partner that's super generous with you, directors that are generous, and you know, again, it all depends on like the shot, right? Like, say for example, you're doing a scene and you're tapped out, and you have no more energy left, and you're really tired. You can always ask your director to push in a little bit on you, because when the camera pushes in on you a little bit, it helps the audience feel more, and therefore you feel less pressure. And sometimes you can do that for a take, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, there it is, I thought it was gone. It's a lot of the pressure that you put on yourself, and then you learn to relax. And then, I don't know if you've found this as well, but actors like to think that they know which ones are the good ones. So you're like, I unloaded everywhere, there was snow, and it was so free, and it felt great, and everybody behind the camera's like, oh, it was too much. And they love the other one.
You're not always the best judge of it.
You're not always the best judge of it, but the point is, and I hate to throw this word around because a lot of actors do this, but it just has to be honest, right? Like, you just have to be listening and be truthful and be open. And so a lot of us go for, especially as women, because that seems to be our form, is to be the criers. That's still we still push that. But what people are looking for when they're watching it is honesty. So honesty may not be that.
Hi. Everyone's heard of the supposed Superman. Are you laughing at my socks?
I love them. I haven't seen those Superman socks before.
Thank you. They were a gift. Everyone's heard of the supposed Superman curse for actors. So my question for y'all is, coming into fame in roles that are so iconic like you did you find that it was in any way limiting for you, or did that open a lot of doors for you in your careers?
Well, for me, I went on from Supergirl. I did Legend of Billie Jean right after Supergirl, which was sort of its own other. And then I don't feel like it limited. I feel like doing like Ruthless People, The Secret of My Success, City Slickers, these movies where I didn't feel I was getting penned in as much. But that might also have been because I only did one Supergirl movie as opposed to 3 Superman films. So I might have had more Leo because of that.
I'm not sure. I think that the journey of an actor is so strange and it's so bizarre. And one thing will work for one person, and the other recipe is it's going to be somebody else. And to be honest, I didn't expect to work as an actor. And I always knew it's like a revolving door, and you're going to go in, and you're going to do your thing for a while, and you're going to go out, and you're lucky if you get to go back in again. And so I kept looking for that door to kick me out. And yeah, you're going to take some downtime. But I think it's more about, for me, it's more about looking at the things that I want to do. And then I don't feel like so stressed out about, oh my God, I'm not going to get this role because I played Lois once, 7 years ago. I'm going to go, okay, I feel like doing this project now or that project now. And so I find my map that way. And I think it really, really depends on who you are and kind of what you're meant to do too. And I think as well, I'm open to a variety of types of things in mediums. So whether it's, I know people that aren't open to doing movie of the weeks, I think they're totally fine, and I love them, and I watch like the Hallmark Christmas movies like a crazy person at Christmas because they're so fun. So my view of that is, and that's kind of part of my personality. I kind of float around and then find out, I think that'd be fun. I gotta work with my friends. Great. I don't overthink it, and I have friends that kind of overthink themselves out of instead of just kind of going for it and going, oh, good, I'm still working.
This question for Helen. Helen, I was 11 years old when Supergirl came out, so I used to have a crush on you back then. But anyway, that's not the question. The question is, what was the most difficult scene you had to do in your career, where you really have to refocus and say, okay, I gotta get my head in here because this is a very difficult scene. I'm gonna do this.
That's a really good question. I did this movie Ruthless People with Bette Midler and Danny DeVito, and there was a scene where this is kind of callback to what we were talking about a little bit ago. I had a scene where I had to let her know that Danny DeVito wasn't going to pay the ransom to get her out. You know, that I had to give her the bad news that her husband just didn't love her enough to save her. And I had worked with an acting coach and had all my sensory preparation, and it just wasn't there. The emotion wasn't there. And Bette Midler said to me, let's try a take where you imagine that you're telling me I have cancer. And so and then the scene, it just sort of, whatever, I was open, it just sort of, the emotion was there, the girls crying, the teary crying thing was there. I mean, but it was very scary to feel that it wasn't there, that I didn't feel honest. I felt like I was faking. It was and to have my acting partner and someone esteemed as Bette Midler be reaching out to a 22-year-old and going, try this, or let's try that. That was, even though it was one of the most difficult moments to feel like I'm blowing the movie, it was also a very reassuring moment that there are actors and actresses that have your back, that want you to do great work, that really look out for you. So I would say that's in that wheelhouse of what you're asking.
We've got time for one more question.
One more question, guys. Who thinks they have the best question?
Thank you. A question for each of you. Helen for Supergirl, Erica for Lois. Just curious, what was the audition process like? Were you approached to do the role? Was it a long audition? If you just wouldn't mind commenting on that. Thank you.
So I was auditioning in Vancouver, and I actually didn't want to go in. I had just had a really bad pilot season where things did not pan out the way I wanted to. A pilot season is basically all of us go down to LA and we fight for 5 jobs. And so it didn't go well, and I was in a bit of a snit. And then I got the call for Lois, and I went in pretty frustrated because I was like, they'll for sure cast out of LA. This is a huge part, and I had this kind of irritated attitude, which may have been what was needed. I don't know. But I was just not in a great headspace. And then what ends up happening for the bigger parts like that, not to make it too dry, but then they call you down, you go to LA, and you have to read in front of the studio first. So you go into this really small room with all these really important people, and you have to do your audition in front of them. And then you go and you wait, and if you've made it past that, then you go to what would be the network, which was WB at the time. And there's a big amphitheater, and you have to go in, and they're all sitting there.
It's horrible, by the way. The system is rigged to make it feel horrible.
Yeah, and they're all in there because they don't have to do anything creative whatsoever. I'm not bitter, but they're not putting themselves out there, so they're in there having their lunch and talking on their phones and having a coffee, and you're walking in there going, "This is my one chance, my life to change forever." And so then you do your audition, and then I found out I was flying back, and right before I got on the plane, I found out I got it, which was really cool. But this shows you my naivety. So I thought, hey, I got the part. They just want me to come into the studio in Burnaby and do some pictures and meet Tom and blah, blah, blah. I was like, great. So I was really relaxed. I did all my photographs, and they sent them down. I thought it was, okay, images for Lois. And then they brought me into this room, and I'm supposed to meet Tom, Helen. And I was like, okay. So we meet, we chat, we go over the scene a couple of times. And little did I know that was my final pre-screen. I didn't have it. They had to make sure Tom liked me. So that would have been very stressful for me as an actress had I known. So that was kind of how I ended up getting it. And that was on a Saturday. And they probably had their backup person in case Tom hated me. And then Monday, I started working, and the first scene I did, I saw him naked. So that was shocking. Well, not really him. We can't do that, folks. But it was still like, if you could think of anything more stressful for a person to be dealing with, that was and thus came Lois's neuroses. So yeah, that was mine.
I had graduated high school and asked my parents if I told my parents I'd like a year off before going to college, then to audition, and I had two agents at the time. One put me up for Supergirl's best friend. The other one put me up for Supergirl. So I went with the agent that put me up for Supergirl. And my mom sewed me a skirt and a cape. And I went in and was like sitting mortified with the other actresses who did not have a skirt or a cape. I was just like, my heart, bang, 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 like, oh my God, like such a feeling of, in improv, there is a game called making a fool of yourself, where you kind of do it on purpose, just make a fool, and this was before I had improv class, but I had that feeling like, oh my gosh, and then, but I sort of just geared up and went in and threw myself into it, and similarly, it wasn't the television going to studio and then network, but it was being flown to England, doing a screen test. The original screen test, I had this platinum wig with like a headband, and they kind of went back and forth. And then on my way back to the States, they asked me to come in, the Salkins and Timothy Burrell and Jenna Swark, and I came in and they were filming me, and I thought, this is very odd. What is this? And they told me that I had gotten the part before getting back on the plane. But yeah, that's pretty much what the thing was.
Well, there we go, guys. I'd like for you to give a massive thanks to Erica and Helen Slater here on the Real GM stage. So thanks very much. Give it up, guys. There we go. There we go. Well, thanks very much, everyone. This was my very first panel, and you've been all really nice. You've been super. Okay, thank you.